Last time.
Let go of me.
Come with me, baby. I'll make you sing.
Huh?
Here we go.
Was Asato safe? Konaway was worried, but there was nothing to be done now. He couldn't start combing through the forest. In the end, he had no choice but to give up.
What is it?
Ray's voice decided for him. Konaway shook his head, then covered his head with his hood and started walking. There wasn't any other way. He could only pray that they would meet again somewhere. I don't know, Konaway. Maybe you're giving up a little too easy here. Maybe. The moon of light started to sink little by little, coloring the sky with colors of dusk. Konaway thought solemnly to himself as he walked. He was a Senga? It still didn't feel real. The one who supported the Toga with their song, deciding victory or defeat in battle. Was he really such a being? With so many unsatisfied thoughts inside his chest, Konaway proceeded through the Vermilion Forest with Ray. They had been walking for a while when the path covered in shrubs began to thin out. There was only a slight difference, but it seemed so fresh to Konaway since the scenery up until now had been the same. For some reason, his heartbeat sped up. His steps became a little lighter, too. Before long, the entangled trees began to open up, and a colossal but distorted silhouette appeared before them.
That is the city of Ranson.
That? As Ray walked before him, Konaway's eyes sparkled in wonder. The city, catching the light of dusk and casting enormous shadows, looked like a monster. Constructed of inorganic material, the town had an old-fashioned color and feel. It was austere and somewhat eerie. Oh. Ranson.
This town was one of the many artifacts left by Toucanes. Their buildings, history, and even their knowledge. Therefore, many from throughout Sissa gather here.
Konaway had heard that Ranson was made from the remains of one of Toucane's cities, so this was it. As they drew closer, the town lay completely exposed. The first impression Konaway got was one of a mishmash of different buildings and beings. Everything coexisted inside this confusion. The foreign nature of it all struck him the most. Little by little, more and more cats started coming and going. After knowing nothing but Kaoru, he thought Ranson seemed like a formidable presence. Konaway became confused, unable to understand what was going on. Had anyone asked him to describe Ranson? He didn't think he would have been able to. Finally, they set foot in the city. Huh. Konaway's mouth fell wide open as he looked around. All he could see was cats, cats, and cats. He could see nothing but cats. Feeling a little overwhelmed, Konaway? Or maybe you're actually excited. That'd be nice. It was so noisy.
Don't get lost.
Ray looked over his shoulder at Konaway, his tail lightly swaying. Konaway followed as if he couldn't lose sight of that tail's white fur. It was the first time he'd ever seen so many cats, and he was honestly quite nervous. With so many eyes watching them, what if there was danger lurking? Konaway was seized with uneasiness at that thought, but he told himself that he was worrying too much. All the cats passed each other with that same sense of haste, and nobody seemed concerned about what was happening around them. What a strange place, Konaway thought, as he looked at a row of homes along a city street. Stalls and colorful signboards of various street vendors occupied the narrow paths. The vendors called out to visitors in boisterous voices that hurt his ears. It was very lively. There were so many colors everywhere. Even so, the general atmosphere seemed so dark. It was dead, despite being so alive. It felt something like that. Still, seeing all of these rare sights made Konaway's heart leap, though he was careful not to stray from Ray. A sign over one of the stalls was decorated with the large Rabican letters. weapons, fruits, and medicinal herbs, and other things like clothing. Here, everything was within reach. Still, the place felt dead. It was a really eerie city. The muddy stream of noises that swirled around the city bothered him. He wondered if he could get used to it. Amidst the hustle and bustle of the crowds, Conway's ears made out a different sound. He could hear a tune coming from out of nowhere. His eyes searched around. Maybe the poet? At the side of the road, a shadow stood still between the other cats. Ah! Conway realized that his legs had broken off into a run on their own. It was the poet, sitting at the side of the road among a group of children. He strummed his lute. You may have forgotten this, and I wouldn't blame you if you had, but in the very first episode of this, the poet was introduced in a city, playing his lute, singing to some cats. He was telling them the story of Rebecca, I think is the name of the goddess. So I'm not sure if this is like meant to be repeating itself, like in a cycle, or if it's kind of like foreshadowing, or this is maybe the real start of the game, like everything before this has been a prologue, and we're kind of just catching up to where the intro is. I'm not sure yet. Conway was about to talk to him when he stopped himself. The children were happily listening to the poet's song. The flowing, quiet melody gently tickled his ears. Both the poet and the children seemed to be in a completely different place. The poet spun words and sang, catching the light of dusk and scattering it to the earth. Small hands reached out. The children eagerly held out their hands and tried to grab the fragments of the song. That's quite an image, but does it mean that the poet is actually generating light the way Conway was with his Sangha song singing, bard, chasing after them? The children frolicked around with smiling faces. Yeah, I think it does. I think the poet's also a Sangha. The poet's voice wrapped around the children like a pale film. Conway was charmed by this scene. He noticed that he was purring. His stiffened tail had relaxed. Even so, he didn't know if what he was seeing was reality or an illusion, but it was fine either way. This was a tender time of satisfaction. He was disturbed by an arm reaching out from behind him. A hand covered his mouth. It pinned him and forcibly dragged him away. Off the main street was a dark hangout for drifters. It was a back alley. The cats that were there didn't seem to care about him. They only looked straight ahead. The hustle and bustle of the streets grew distant. Suddenly, at his side, Conway heard wild breathing. Following it, sounds of lips being licked. As soon as he heard that, a chill ran down his spine. I was wondering when the cannibalism was going to come back. The cat who dragged Conway ran his hand over his clothes and roped about his legs. That was when Conway understood where the cat was aiming for. Oh, so not cannibalism. Okay. Gathering all of his strength, Conway headbutted the cat behind him with all his might. At the cat's muffled groan, the powerful grip on his body was loosened at once. He immediately jumped away, then kicked his knee into the cat, who hunched over in pain. Damn. You go, Conway. The cat coughed wetly and fell over. Conway scowled at the cat, breathless himself, and immediately headed back towards the main street.
Hey!
Conway turned at that voice. Weaving his way through the crowd of cats, Ray approached at a quick pace, his face stern.
What are you doing? I thought I told you not to get lost.
No,
Let me guess. Someone dragged you into a back alley. You want to cry about it?
When Ray guessed right, Conway reflexively looked up at him. In his blue eye was a hint of irritation.
This place is different from Kauru and the villages around it. There are plenty of cats here who are way stronger than you. Don't be so reckless next time.
Conway knew, but for some reason he became strangely annoyed and turned his face away with a sour look.
Let's go. Don't get lost again. Who knows what'll happen next time?
His way of speaking like a parent was becoming more and more annoying, but Ray had already begun to walk away. While following after Ray, Conway looked at the area where the poet sat before. The children were gone, as was he. Damn. Had it been an illusion after all? An illusion of what? Like, who or what would be casting this illusion on you, Konaway? Do you mean, like, delusion? Like you were seeing things? Huh. Konaway shook his head as if to clear his thoughts. He hurried on ahead, not wanting to lose sight of Ray. Mixed in with the street stalls that were lined up, Konaway occasionally saw buildings made of some strange material. Probably remains from toucans. Oh, I just had a thought. The toucans, I think, are humans. At least that's how I interpreted the explanation at the beginning of the game. I went over that in my first abridged video, I think. But if you've been sitting here like, what the fuck is a toucans? They're the ancestors of these people. Or ancestors of some people. But I think they're humans. I think that's who the toucans were supposed to be. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. You could not feel much of a temperature on the gray surface. As they passed, Konaway wished she could go inside. Gray surface like cement, maybe? They had been walking for a while when Ray stopped and stood in front of one of the buildings. It wasn't a remnant of toucans. It was just a normal building. On a signboard tied up high above them, the letters simply declared, Inn. So by a normal building, they mean one that's like made out of boards, wood. And the toucans building would be made out of like stone, brick, cement, I don't know. So it's kind of like when the Roman Empire fell, and the people who came after that were like, how did they build these things like aqueducts? We have no fucking idea. And the technology was lost for a long time. So maybe that's like what the cat people are in, like the Dark Ages or something. Or some kind of Dark Age.
Go in.
Ray pushed open the door and entered the building. As soon as they entered, Konaway saw a reception desk, but no one was behind the counter. It felt like a waiting room for the reception of guests, decorated with a small but comfortable sofa and a set of 2 tables. Behind it were stairs that led to a second floor. The inn didn't seem very large. Ray approached the reception desk. On the counter were a book and some papers with various notes. Just stepped out. The rate is on a deferred payment system. Those who desired lodging choose an unoccupied room for the book and sign in. Well, isn't that just convenient?
What a ridiculous inn.
Wanna go somewhere else?
No, it's fine. This one is pretty comfortable.
Ray furrowed his brows and opened up the rooming book. There were small plates of vermilion ink placed close by. He dipped his fingertip in the ink and pressed it to one of the empty rooms.
Let's go.
Ray headed towards the stairs. Konaway was about to follow him when he stopped. He heard a sound from the entrance. Was it just his imagination? He tried scoping out his surroundings. The sound got louder. The front door shook. It startled him, and his tail bristled a bit. Watching the door intently, as if someone was about to bust in and eat him, Konaway heard a muffled voice. Hey, anyone in there? If someone could open this up, it'd be a huge help. My hands are full. I can't do it myself. The door rattled. Not able to simply disregard it, Konaway had no choice but to approach the door. Making sure that his hood was low over his eyes, Konaway cautiously opened the door. My bad. Thanks for the help. I bought way too much stuff. At the sound of the fatigued voice, something was set down with a thud next to Konaway. It was a huge package wrapped in cloth. Konaway looked up timidly at the tall, broad-shouldered cat who now stood before him. There we go. Huh? You ain't again. The cat blinked his eyes in surprise. His ears were round, and the fur on his tail was golden with black stripes. Konaway wondered if this cat and Ray were from the same clan of large breeds. He was probably much older than Konaway. Hi, Daddy.
Who's Gen?
He's a frequent customer at this inn. But what about you? Are you staying here?
Yeah, that's right.
I see. At his easy reply, Konaway felt kind of disappointed. This guy was probably the inn's owner, but he didn't behave very much like it. Well, you're a little overdressed. It is getting close to winter. but it ain't that cold yet. On top of that, you're pretty quiet, too. Conway was offended by his slightly condescending words. Conway, you're offended by everything, buddy. However, the cat didn't seem too concerned about Conway one way or the other, and only tilted his head wearily. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Bardo. I run this inn. It's nothing fancy, but it's small and cozy, so it's plenty comfortable. You can rest as much as you like. The winter festival's near. It gets crowded around that time. Are you staying here for the festival? Conway shook his head. You got so shy all of a sudden. Well, you should take a look. It's not as glamorous as spring, but it's worth seeing. I prefer the one in winter myself. No one cares about what you prefer. Conway was about to speak those words, but he held his tongue. The festival is coming pretty soon, so why not stay until then? Oh, that's right. And that, As he chattered away just to chatter, Bardo raised his eyebrows as though he'd just remembered something. Suddenly, his gaze fell to Conway. Can I ask you a favor, as an innkeeper to his guest? Conway, past the point of being cranky, was now descending into a downright foul mood. Did all the rancing cats act like this? You mean sociably, Conway? Hear him out. Conway felt like Bardo was being overly friendly with him, but it didn't seem wise to deny his request and make an enemy.
I'll hear you out.
No, it's just a simple request. I want you to look after my inn for a little bit.
As a receptionist?
Well, I came back here to put all my bags down, but now I need to go on a shopping trip, a little farther into town. A substitute receptionist is coming, but they're not here yet. Not having someone at the desk for such a long time ain't a good idea. You'll do until the other guy shows up.
When's he coming?
Soon. It's strange that he hasn't shown up yet. It's way past the designated time. So how about it? Bardo said without an ounce of shame, as if he had the gall to put things off on others. This guy had some nerve. Well, if you don't wanna, that's fine too. Even if you have to go to another inn. Bardo continued lightly. It was as if he sympathized with Conway. Although, I don't know if other inns will have vacancies.
Why you?
Bardo grinned provocatively. This guy.
You'll threaten a customer?
I'm just saying either one is fine by me. It's your call. Though his anger began to boil, Conway made sure to keep his composure. If he declined Bardo's request and looked for another inn, couldn't be guaranteed he'd find a place to stay.
I understand.
Thanks a bunch, sugar. Bardo smiled at him. It was like a smile of triumph, and Conway felt a pang of bitter defeat.
What should I do as a receptionist?
Well, when a customer shows up, ask him for their name and write it down in the account book. Yeah, you. What's your name?
Conway.
Conway. Well, if you're still here when I get back, I'll whip up a meal for you. Ours are said to be quite good, I'll tell you.
That's okay. Thanks.
Well then, I'll leave it to you. Waving one hand, Bardo left the inn. It felt as if a storm just passed. Once Bardo was gone, Conway stared at the door, feeling strangely empty. Conway realized that he was completely dragged into Bardo's hectic pace. In short, he'd been used. Conway glanced at the counter and began to feel increasingly irritated. There was no reason to be forced to respond, or to make a promise at an inn he had only entered by chance. Well,
This,
I don't fucking know.
This,